Good morning, you guys. I am out here braving the elements for my walk, but I keep seeing lightning striking. And Lord, they are pretty big. The emotional check-in. I feel good now that I'm out and it feels like nature is upon me. But my phone is waterproof, so whoop, y'all. I don't know if I should be on it though. You know what I'm saying? But I'm just gonna try to at least get in one good lap because the strikes are close together. And yeah, and you hear the rain coming down, so you know what time it is. Chaos fam, I love you guys so much. Tribe members, I love you. Oh, I'm getting nervous. I'm gonna get off this phone here, and I don't need no conduits, and it's getting a lot more rainy. So I will talk to you in a bit. Love you guys, and I'll see you when I get inside. Hopefully I make it inside. Shortest walk known to man. It is pouring, and my dumb ass, I ain't got no damn, what do you call it, hood. So I gotta go back and get a hood. This stuff is coming down, but I love it. It's just the lightning. That's the only thing I'm worried about, having this phone in my hand. What? But I feel good. Other than that, these drops are very violent, y'all. Oh my god. It's been a while since we had a really good rain, so I'm excited. And let me go inside. People are like scurrying to get their stuff inside. This shit is wild, but I'm excited. Let me go get a hood. I'm not gonna bring you guys back out, so I'll see you in a minute. I love you guys so much, and I will talk to you later. Bye. Y'all, as soon as I came in, it started pouring even harder, and then 5 minutes later, it stopped. I'm contemplating going out again, but now I'm just over it. I'm so upset, but like self-care. But anyways, there are 6 cans left, I'm concerned. So my husband took my son to school, I think, or the bus stop. I'm not sure, y'all. I think to school, because he would have been back if it was the bus stop already. But yeah, I'm about to feed Paz. Wolf Piles. Dang. And I guess get this day started. So I had a talk with his wife on Tuesday, I think Monday, and because I hadn't heard from him in a while. So she tells me they're good and everything. You know, she's really cool, she's really sweet. And she starts talking about us meeting up and everything. They're in Illinois. And, you know, I'm here in El Paso. So my father calls me the next day, and he's like adamant that we need to meet each other, because technically when I had started talking to him, my kids were 4 and, no, not even 4, like 2, like 3 and 1. So, and now they're 16 and 19. So it's been a minute since I had started talking to him and not met up with him. But I had to work through a lot of stuff. And I know you guys are like, it's been some hella years, but I had to work through some stuff. It was just some stuff with him and my mom, and some things that made me anxious about being around him. And even though I was working on this relationship with him, it was still kind of like, I don't know. You know, like I said, I chose loyalty to my mom over developing the relationship with my father in the beginning, because of all the stories and everything that I had heard and things that I actually remember in my memory bank. So there were things that I actually could recall. So plus there were things that happened even before I came to be. So I kind of, did you guys hear that on my stomach? So I kind of just took it extremely slow, as you can see, extremely. The last, like, okay, and there was a point in time where he got arrested again, and I stopped talking to him for a while over that, because I was like, I can't be having somebody that's going to be like in and out of my life, you know, because I didn't sign up for that. My kids are not used to that, and I'm not used to it. My dad was always there. He came home every night. I didn't have to worry about stuff, so that just wasn't my life, you know. And so I took a break from him for a while, and I didn't talk to him. I just put it like, you know, until you can get yourself together, we just can't talk. So we didn't talk for a while, because I was wondering, why is it so long? But there was a gap in time, but we didn't talk or anything. I believe he reached back out to me after everything was said and done. I can't quite remember, to be honest with you. Like, I don't remember who started talking to who first, but we started talking again, and maybe that was around the time I was like maybe 30-ish, but even still, I'm 39 now, so still, you know what I mean? I didn't realize how much time had went past until I started talking to his wife about when I first met him, or when I first called him. So I went to, I think I told you guys, Entellus.com back in 2004, I want to say. And I input his name in there, and it generated a list of 3 pages worth of people with his name within Illinois itself, because I didn't know like what part of Illinois he was in, or even if he was in Illinois. So so there was a number, it was the 3rd number on the list. As soon as I got the list, the 3rd number stood out for some reason. I never had seen the area code. I had never seen anything. I don't remember it, don't recall it or anything. So, and my mom hadn't had his number since who knows when. The last time I felt like I heard from him prior to 2004 was 1993, and that was on my 13th birthday he called. So I called all the numbers around it, you know, avoiding number 3, and number 3 ended up being his phone number. It was kind of like intimidating to talk to him. I was nervous and I was scared for some reason, even though we were in different places. He didn't know where I lived, anything like that, but I was still a little like nervous to talk to him and give up too much information or allow him in my life to like too much. So I took it extremely slow, and fast forward to today, we're in a really good spot. I forgave like a lot of things that happened between him and my mom, and moving forward, you know, trying to develop the relationship. So we said this year that we were going to try and meet up, and so it's November, and we only have this month and next month. I over obligated myself for November, so December is probably looking like it, and I'm kind of feeling like I'm over obligating myself to December as well, because I believe my sister needs me to watch my nephew for a couple weeks while he's out of school, so I might be staying in San Diego for a couple weeks while he's in school. So yeah, I'm excited and I'm nervous, you know, and I don't like telling my dad like about my father, but I do fill him in just because, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like I have to. My dad spent his time, money, and energy raising me, and he didn't ask for anything in return. He wasn't like, tell that POS he needs to give me money. He didn't even want his money. He didn't want, because my mom was like, we could file child support on him, and he was like, basically with a lot of profanities, that he doesn't want anything from him. And from him, he didn't want his money. He didn't want anything to do. He didn't want me to have a relationship with him. He didn't want anything. So we just never, from that point forward, he called me when I was 6, I think, when I first came to California, and then he called me on my 13th. So there's a gap, and I also feel like maybe he was locked up. That's why there was a huge gap. But nonetheless, we just moved on with our lives. I hadn't heard from him or anything. By the time I had kids, I was kind of like, I need to know like what ailments and what things are going on his side of the family. Even though my dad was really adorable, when I was filling out the paper with Kimana, he told me all the ailments and I filled all of that stuff in, but I pulled my mom to the side and I was like, Mom, Dad gave me all his information for, you know, the side where it says father, and I filled it in and everything, and she knew what I was getting at, and she thought it was cute too, because like he didn't think twice at all. Like I'm like, oh, I don't have anything to put on my father's side, so I was like, oh Mom, what's on your side of the family? And she's spewing it out, and then my dad, without even a second thought, starts telling me everything that's on his side, and I just filled everything out. He's my dad, and maybe, you know what I mean, like, he's my dad, and he really felt proud like to have this information on my, I mean, even though it's not good, you know, illnesses and stuff like that, but he was like proud to give me the information, like to fill it out. And he sat with me for like a good 30 minutes to an hour, like filling out the information about his side of the family. And while I wanted nothing more for all that to be true, not the illnesses, but like just that in itself, that it was just like, oh well, his information is suffice and we share the same everything and it's fine and it's over. That wasn't the case, and it made me start thinking like I need to know about the other side that's genetically linked to me. Nothing more. He was just like that at first. Oh, he's playing games. So I put off the search, and then I had my son. My son, I don't know why, it just made me think more like I need to really figure out what's going on genetically with the other side. I don't know what brought it on more with him, but I think because they take after their father's side medically, so maybe that's what made me think of my father as like, oh well, but even though, you know, that's not his son, but it just made me think of like, maybe I should figure this information out to see what to look out for. So I call him, so I pay Entellus, I believe it was $7 or $14, I can't remember. $7 or $14 I paid to get this list, and that's where, you know, everything took off. Our talks were awkward at first. It was very weird, and I didn't know what to say. There was a lot of gaps in between our talks, and all that good stuff. Finally, like probably 2-3 years ago, so 2 or 3 years ago is when it started like picking up momentum, and we had a more natural pace and talk, you know what I mean? So after like not having so many gaps in between and being able to talk regularly and openly, and I just let my guard down, we started developing the relationship we have today. Talked to Kevin yesterday. Like I said, hey, I talked to my father, and come here, Wolf. Come here, Wolf. Come here, want a treat? I talked to my father, and he wants to meet up. Wolf. And he wants to meet up. I'm really like down for it. I'm kind of like interested in doing it too, and I got excited about it. Also a little nervous because he has a lot of ailments. I got things going on, and I'm like, you know, I don't feel like time is on our side with regard to the meeting, you know what I mean? Like his family has been having a lot of losses lately. I lost my grandmother, who I was really like, I developed a cool relationship with her over the last maybe, you know, not a year and a half before she left. So she was really sweet. My mom even liked her. She spoke super highly of her, and when I told her of her passing, she was really upset. So yeah, I think she passed November, so it's gonna be 2 years, I believe. She passed November 2017, and then 5 months later I lost my grandma on my mom's side. So I felt like I was losing, you know, a lot, and it made me really think like I need to get over my fears, and that's one of my biggest fears, was to meet him. So one of my biggest fears was to meet him, and I couldn't get past a lot of stuff that happened, you know, in our past. But without that past, I wouldn't be in the place that I am now, because we would have never been in San Diego. So I would have never met my husband. I would have never had my kids. You know what I mean? So everything does happen for a reason. I wish it wasn't at the expense of my family, my mom specifically. And yeah, my family wasn't very fond of him due to the things that happened. And I'm just trying to be able to learn how to differentiate my relationship with him and, you know, the relationship that I have with my mom, and hopefully neither one of them feel, because I've always felt like a kid in the middle of a custody battle. Even now, at the age that I'm at, and if I talk about one of them with the other one, it turns ugly really fast, right, Kevin?
What?
When I talk about like my father to my mom, or about my,
I'm very unpleasant.
it just becomes like crazy when they hear about each other, not realizing I'm the one in the middle that I have to I try not to feed into whatever's going on. They have their feelings, and neither one of them got to close those chapters. So my father, I'm not gonna lie, he's not as upset as my mom, but as you could imagine, since he was the one on the other side of the situation in our family, you know, I understood why my mom was mad. I understood a lot of things, you know what I mean? So I'm not mad that she's mad at him. I just wish that she would have gotten help to deal with it, you know what I mean? Because who wants to hang on to that anger, and you know what I mean? So under different circumstances, it would have been really cool if the families could be together, you know, him and his wife, and my mom and my dad, and it would have been pretty dope just to be able to bridge those gaps. But I know that I have to do it on my own separately. I have a very planted relationship with my mom and dad, and so I'm trying to establish something with him and get to know him and see him in person. So him and his wife are supposed to get back to me. Today is their appointment, and they're gonna get back to me when they have a follow-up appointment. So we're gonna plan our meetup around that time. And yeah, I'm nervous, and I'm nerve-sighted, so like nervous and excited about it. But do I tell my mom? Do I leave this part separate? I'm not used to keeping stuff from my parents. I tell them literally everything. They even know when I poop. Like, I'm just a TMI person with them. Like, we talk about very inappropriate things together and all kinds of stuff. I'm just really, really close to them, so it's hard for me to keep things. I have diarrhea of the mouth, and you probably could tell just from how I am on here that I have a hard time keeping stuff in. So I don't know. I might tell them after the fact versus before. I don't know. I feel guilty on the inside about even entertaining it, to be honest. It just, I don't know. It makes me sad that I go through these emotions. Like, oh my God, I'm so nervous. Like, how are they going to react? And it's not like they're going to be like, I don't love you anymore. But I do always tell my dad, like, I'm so grateful to you. And, you know, thank you for being there for me and stuff like that. And he's like, you don't have to thank me, you know what I mean? You don't have to thank me. But if y'all know how I was in the beginning with him, I was a really rude child, and I was not very receptive of him. Number one, I developed a fear of men based on my father, and then number two, I let him know all the time that he wasn't my father. So yeah, and he wasn't. He's my dad, and definitely there's a difference, you know what I mean? Definitely there's a difference. So I have this like really close relationship with my dad, like super close. We're like, all these emails, we're super close, and I don't want anything to affect that because we've always been close, you know what I mean? He spent a lot of time getting me out of my shell and making me like not so like you know. The anxiety stayed with me because if you witness abuse, you do develop anxiety. But he did his very best to assure me that he would never hurt my mother, he would never hurt me. Like, he did a lot. He went over and beyond what I feel like he needed to do to assure me, and he kept his word all these years, you know what I mean, all these years. He's never touched my mom, he's never done anything. If anything, I have to worry about him. But yeah, it's crazy to think at 39 years old that you could be in a place where you feel like you're still caught in the middle of some kind of weird custody agreement. Or, you know, I see these things all the time, and I'm like, you know, telling Heaven, like, if we ever split up, I told him younger because we had a separation, you know, and when we were, I think I was 25 and he was 26, we separated for a year, and like, if he wanted to get him, he could. I wasn't, none of that, you know what I mean, none of that. And every Sunday I invited him to eat dinner with us, so I just never wanted that kind of hostility. Whatever I felt, you know, I try to put whatever to the side at that moment and let him be around his kids. And so yeah, I don't know, it's hard, you know, because there's feelings involved on both sides. I'm more so protective of my mom's feelings, just because we've been together forever, you know what I mean? We've been together forever, and it was her and I for a minute, and I felt very protective of her. So I always feel protective of her, and I always feel like I need to protect her. And, you know, even now, like when I talk to my parents and they're going through things, I try to make sure that I'm always mediating, for both, advocating for both of them so that they can both be heard. So, you know, because it's hard to talk to each other sometimes, but I won't be able to mediate something like that between my father and my mom, just because there's a lot of apologies that won't happen, and there's a lot of forgiveness that won't happen. And like I said, I can understand my mom's point of view. I just don't want her to carry it with her. A lot of that, I feel like, you know, a lot of it contributes to her high blood pressure and things like that. When we're not being very forgiving, I feel like it does create this thing inside of us that, you know, harms us physically, and it comes out, you know, through high blood pressure or illness or something else. She's very good at expressing the fact that she's upset, but as far as hurt goes, you know, we tend to mask those as, you know, as humans, and go straight to anger. But the first, that's a secondary emotion, and the first one is usually hurt. So it's not that you don't get angry, because it's true, you can be angry, but it's usually a secondary emotion. So you get hurt first, and then you get upset. So I can understand her being angry at this point. You know, she probably dealt with hurt in the beginning, but now she's at the point where she's just angry. And she tells me that it doesn't bother her, but during the time, I don't know how long a lot of people have been here, but in June I do have a vlog. I was doing my name change. It started back in February, the whole thing where I didn't have a last name. I couldn't have my husband's last name because my birth certificate, my social security number, and my marriage license all didn't link up. So I had my mom's maiden name my entire life. I never used my father's name for anything, but legally I think that's the name I was supposed to be using because it was on my state birth certificate. I had to have, but everyone let me go through the system until I got here. And also they're doing, what is it, the Real ID Act or something, so they're looking more into those things now, and everything has to match up across the board. So I had to go to court, get a name change, so that everything can link up from my past to my present. That's when my father and my mother kind of had the most interaction through me, not to each other, but through me. And it was pretty stressful. My mom would get very angry and hostile. My father did pay for half of it, even though I didn't have to pay all that money. But either way, he, you know, I felt like it hurt his feelings and I did feel bad, but it was just, honestly, it was too much. I had to go through things I was gonna use his last name and then proceed to do everything else later. And what happened was I ended up, you know, trying to go through Social Security, and they were like, you're not linked to this name on your Social Security, like how does this add up? And I'm like, it's on my birth certificate. And and then it became a lot of questioning from Social Security. So I was like, oh my gosh. And I've never used that name on my Social Security, so it was a lot of things going on. It was very stressful. I was stressed out constantly. So that's when they interacted the most, and it stressed me out to no end, like the endless amounts of calls and everything. Finally, on my dad's birthday, we had just come back from San Diego, picking up we went to Nate's graduation, came back, and the next day I had to go to court, and I got my name changed for my dad's birthday for this next chapter. But I do want your input because you guys are my family and I really value your input. Do you think that I should tell her and my dad prior to about meeting with him, because I feel guilty, you know? I don't know what Kevin's doing. He's probably not dressed, but I'm gonna ask him his opinion because I just like to get input. But I mean, please comment down below and tell me like what you think too. Tribe members, I'm like talking to you. So Kevin, where are you? What do you think I should do? Do you think I should tell my parents first or after I would to meet him?
Yeah, I wouldn't put them in that situation. That's your thing.
Like
never? They're very
So you're like never tell them ever? Like
I mean, no. It's to me, it's a sensitive subject. I would keep it as your personal journey, not theirs.
Yeah, that makes sense too.
That's your journey, not theirs. They don't want nothing to do with that situation, unfortunately.
I mean, and all that is true.
It would have been a healing process, but they're not on their level. Mm-hmm. To my understanding, to them that's in the past.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
I mean, I agree.
It's your journey.
He's gonna be a part of it. He's gonna be with me while I'm being scared.
Wow.
So he's right about that. It's just like I told you guys before, I have a huge mouth and I tell them everything. So I feel at some point I'm probably going to be telling them, but I just don't know when, you know. I don't know. Or Kevin's going to be like, maybe he has to shoot me a look like, don't be saying shit. When you don't have bread, we use waffles. Okay? We use waffles. And I love mustard and I love pickles, as you can see. Look how pretty. Yeah.